Good evening and welcome to Poetry in Motion. In this new YouTube channel, I'll be talking about poems that I've read during my life that have meant something to me. Poems that have made me cry, made me laugh, made me feel sympathy, made me feel alone, made me feel loved. What they all have in common is that they have all stirred some kind of emotion within me. Some have inspired me to write my own poetry, and a few of those poems may well be included in videos. But most importantly, I hope that by sharing some of these poems, they'll touch you in the same way that they've touched me. Before we start, I want to add that any views I express on the interpretation of the poems or what I think they're about are my own views. That doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they're mine. I hope you enjoy watching these videos, and I hope that you get to know some great poets and to love the poetry as much as I do. Thank you. Today we start with one of my all-time favourite poets, a guy called William Butler Yeats. Yeats wrote a number of poems and many of them have become old favourites of mine. The one I want to read tonight and to talk about is An Irish Airman Foresees His Death. I talk about this one because it was one that I read as a teenager and it really made me think. The opening lines talk about an airman who knows he's going to die in battle, and yet he doesn't love those that he's serving and he doesn't hate those that he's fighting. And it makes you wonder, well, why is he there? Why did he sign up for this? Why did he join the Air Force? He didn't need to. It's a poem that was quoted by Harry Connick Jr. in the film Memphis Belle. And in that context, it's set in the Second World War. And you sort of think to yourself, if he's an Irishman, they were neutral in the Second World War. And they didn't need to fight. But he says later in the poem that it was a lonely impulse that sent him to join up. But that then made me think about whether or not other soldiers and other servicemen who fought in other conflicts may have felt the same. They joined for the camaraderie, they joined possibly for the fact that it was a job and they needed money. And then they end up fighting in a conflict with which they don't agree. So let's read An Irish Airman Foresees His Death. I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere among the clouds above. Those I fight I do not hate, and those I guard I do not love. My country is Kiltartan Cross, my countrymen Kiltartan's poor. No likely end could bring them loss, or leave them happier than before. Nor law nor duty bade me fight, nor public man, nor cheering crowds. A lonely impulse of delight drove to this tumult in the clouds. I balanced all, brought all to mind. The years to come seemed waste of breath, a waste of breath the years behind, in balance with this life, this death. Makes you think. And as I say, it made me think. And I wondered, and I eventually came up with an answer. I'd like now to read you one of my poems that was written as a direct result of this. It's called Torn Soldier. It's about an English soldier who's sent to Northern Ireland at the height of the Troubles. Now, this was a period I grew up in, not in Ireland, but it was all over our papers, something we lived with every day. We had bomb scares that meant that our schools were closed. And so it had a lasting effect on my life growing up. But I wondered, what if an English soldier didn't agree with the conflict he was forced to be in? So this is Torn Soldier. We are not welcome here. We did not ask to come. to face petrol bombs and half-bricks thrown by every mother's son. We're told we have to bear it. We're told to do our job, to face our fears, ignore the jeers and quell the rioting mob. We face guns and bombs and snipers just because of what we are. We dare not leave the barracks except in armoured cars. Ambush and execution are not uncommon here. And yet we lose more comrades as year rolls into year. We're told there's no civilians. Suspect all those you meet. They could be paramilitaries who'll shoot you in the street. And yet I cannot hate them, dismiss them out of hand. For I too would fight for freedom if some other held our land. Who would want their land divided by some other sovereign realm? To know your ship of state has some stranger at the helm. To know the masters of your fate are not your countrymen alone. And to feel you are a foreigner in a land you call your home. And though I must do my duty to those who sent me here, I'll do it with compassion, not with violence or fear. For I cannot help but wonder, if I was not my mother's son, but born instead in this land, which side would I be on? I hope you liked both those poems, and I hope they'll encourage you to subscribe and to listen again to the next ones. In the meantime, good night.